Hello, dreamers. Tonight I will take you on a journey so distant, so ancient, and yet so alive, that for a moment you may feel as if the stones beneath your feet are the roads of Rome itself. In this quiet hour when the world around you softens into silence, let your mind drift far beyond the present. For what you are about to hear is not merely a story. It is the life of a single Roman coin, a simple silver denarius that passed through the hands of soldiers, merchants, emperors, thieves, and monks. A coin that witnessed love, war, ambition, greed, hope, and the rise and fall of the greatest empire the world has ever known. And just like every soul that touched it, this coin carried stories hidden inside its cold silver surface, waiting centuries for someone to listen. Tonight, you will be that someone. So lie back, close your eyes, and imagine the first glimmer of moonlight touching the rooftops of ancient Rome. The night is cool, the breeze soft, and somewhere in the distance, the muffled roar of the Tiber whispers like a lullaby. The year is 161 CE. Marcus Aurelius, a man who will one day be called a philosopher emperor, has just taken the throne. And far away from the palaces, in a small minting workshop tucked between marble columns and dusty streets, a silversmith presses a fresh strip of silver into the denarius mold. For a moment before the hammer falls, the coin is nothing more than metal. But when the hammer lands once, twice, the metal breathes. It takes on the face of the emperor, a wreath on his head, a calm gaze, a promise of Rome's order. The silversmith wipes sweat from his forehead, examines the coin, and nods in approval. It shines with a soft, cold brilliance. He places it among dozens of others inside a leather pouch, never knowing that this one coin, this single denarius, will outlive him, outlive his children, outlive Rome itself. He has no idea that the coin he just struck will be carried across mountains, seas, deserts, temples, battlefields, and ruins. That it will pass through the hands of people whose names will never be recorded, but whose stories deserve to be heard. The first person to receive the coin is a young Roman soldier named Lucius Marcellus. He is 20 years old, standing in line with hundreds of men outside a paymaster's tent near the cold northern frontier. The year is harsh. Snow clings to the edges of the canvas, the breath of horses hangs heavy in the air, and the forest beyond the camp looms dark and endless. Lucius shifts in place, rubbing his hands together. He is tired of marching, tired of freezing, tired of dreaming of Rome while standing in a land that seems determined to swallow him whole. But tonight is payday. When Lucius reaches the front of the line, the paymaster counts his coins, sliding each one into Lucius' open palm with a practiced motion. One coin slips onto Lucius' skin, and the instant he feels its coldness, he glances down. The silver gleams even in the dim evening light. Marcus Aurelius' profile stares back at him, calm, strong, unshaken by the snows of Germania. Lucius smiles, tucks the coin into his pouch, and walks back toward the barracks feeling just a little more alive. Inside the barracks, the men huddle near a small fire. They laugh, argue, drink watered wine, and share stories of home. Lucius sits quietly at the edge of the group, holding the coin between his fingers, turning it slowly. He thinks of his mother, who lives in a modest apartment near Rome's Forum. He imagines her boiling lentils, folding clothes, waiting for letters that sometimes never arrive. He thinks of sending her a small gift when he next returns to civilization. Not yet, not now, but someday. Just as Lucius begins to drift into memory, an older soldier, Gaius, sits beside him. "Counting your wealth, boy?" he asks with a rough smile. Lucius chuckles. "Only admiring the minting. It's new. Look how sharp the detail is." Gaius takes the coin, examines it with squinted eyes, then hands it back. A coin is a coin. It buys warmth, food, and maybe one night of comfort if you're lucky. But remember this, boy. A coin is never ours. It only visits us. Lucius doesn't understand, not yet, but he will. The next morning, the horn sounds before sunrise. Barbarian scouts have been spotted near the river. The legion must prepare. Lucius straps on his armor, tightens his sandals, and marches toward the frozen battlefield. For hours they stand in formation waiting. The air is thick with tension. No attack comes. The forest stays still. Eventually, the general orders the men to return to camp. It is on the walk back that Lucius slips on a patch of ice. His pouch loosens. A few coins scatter into the snow, including the denarius. Lucius kneels quickly, brushing through the icy slush, but he finds only 3 of his coins. The silver denarius has rolled away, disappearing into the frost-covered grass. Lucius searches until his fingers are numb, but the coin is gone. A few meters away, hidden between stalks of brittle grass, the coin lies untouched until a small, ragged-looking boy crawls forward from behind a tree. He is no more than 12. A local tribesman, thin, hungry. His eyes dart nervously as he picks up the coin with trembling hands. Silver. He has never owned silver before. To him, the coin is not a symbol of Rome. It is a dream, a spark of hope. He hides the coin in his tunic and disappears into the forest. Days later, when his village travels south to trade furs and dried fish at a Roman outpost, the boy stands behind his father and watches silently. He is too afraid to speak Roman words, but when the merchant counts their goods and begins offering payment, the boy suddenly steps forward and places the denarius on the table. The Roman merchant looks surprised. "Where did you get this?" he asks. The boy cannot answer. The merchant shrugs and adds a strip of cloth and a small pouch of grain to their payment. The trade is complete, and now the coin enters Roman hands again. From there, it travels to the port of Ostia, the empire's beating heart of trade. The merchant uses the coin to pay for spices imported from the eastern provinces. The trader receiving the coin inspects it, nods, and tosses it carelessly into a heavy wooden chest filled with dozens of other coins. But that night, after the stalls close, the spice trader's daughter, Sabina, runs into the workshop giggling, her hair tied with ribbons. She loves to sift through her father's coin chest, holding up the shiny pieces and pretending she is wealthy. Among all the dull, worn coins, the denarius from Lucius stands out. Its shine draws her like a firefly. She lifts it to her eye, amazed at the emperor's face. "This one is special," she says softly. Her father smiles, scoops her onto his lap, and tells her tiny stories about emperors and soldiers, about deserts and ships, about the magic of trade that connects the world. Sabina falls asleep with the coin in her hand. The next morning, the trader needs change for a purchase. Without realizing it, he uses that same denarius to pay a baker for bread. The baker, a middle-aged woman named Livia, places the coin in a small wooden bowl near the window. She doesn't pay attention. She is too busy kneading dough, shouting at her apprentice and wiping flour from her face. She has no idea that a coin sitting silently in a bowl has already traveled through war camps, forests, villages, and markets. To her, it is simply one more piece of silver. Later that afternoon, a wealthy spice merchant named Publius arrives at the bakery. He loves Livia's honey bread. While paying, he grabs a handful of coins from the bowl, including the denarius. For Publius, the coin will become something else entirely, a key to Rome's financial world. Publius ships the coin to Rome with a courier. Once in the capital, he uses it in a transaction with a banker near the Forum. The banker, Tiberius Fuscus, is a man of precision, sharp eyes, calm demeanor, and hands that never tremble. When Publius hands him the denarius, Tiberius notices its shine immediately. "New minting," he mutters. He places the coin aside, marking it as part of a ledger transaction involving trade loans. This is where the coin learns a new life, one not of soldiers or survival, but of numbers, agreements, and the invisible power behind Rome's economy. For days, the coin sits inside a marble counting room, listening to scribes whisper sums, calculate debts, and handle sums so large that even an emperor might raise a brow. Tiberius eventually gives the coin as part of a payment to a Judean tax collector visiting Rome to discuss provincial revenue. The man accepts the coin, folds the payment into a cloth purse, and prepares for the long journey back to his province. The coin once again leaves Rome. As the tax collector boards a ship bound for the eastern Mediterranean, the sea breeze cools the silver surface. The waves rock the vessel gently. Days pass. The ship creaks through storms, glides in calm waters, and finally reaches Caesarea Maritima. The tax collector disembarks, walking through crowded streets filled with merchants arguing, camels groaning, and children chasing one another. In Judea, the coin becomes a tool of power, collected from farmers, merchants, fishermen, widows, and caravan traders. For some, losing the coin means hunger. For others, it means their taxes paid for another month. The coin becomes witness to frustration, prayers, anger, and quiet resignation. One evening, during a heated tax dispute in a small village, the denarius falls from the tax collector's table and rolls near the feet of a young man, a fisherman named Matthias. While the officials argue loudly, Matthias discreetly steps on the coin, sliding it toward himself. When the men leave, Matthias pockets it. To him, the coin represents hope, maybe the chance to buy a better net, maybe medicine for his wife. For weeks, Matthias carries the coin everywhere. But one stormy night, as he tries to fix a damaged fishing net by the shore, a strong wave crashes onto the rocks. He slips, loses his grip, and the coin falls into the churning water. Matthias cries out, helpless, as the sea swallows it. But the sea does not keep it for long. The current carries the coin along the coast until it washes ashore near a Roman supply port. A traveling merchant walking the beach spots the silver glint and picks it up. "Fortune favors the patient," he whispers. He carries the coin north toward Carthage, a city reborn from ashes. And there, in a sunlit villa overlooking the sea, the coin finally reaches the hands of a man who will cherish it in a way no one else has. His name is Marcellinus, a retired Roman cavalry officer turned landowner. When he receives the coin from the merchant as part of a grain purchase, he pauses. "This one is beautiful," he murmurs. He rubs the coin with a cloth, making it shine even brighter. Something about it reminds him of his youth, of campfires, of marching through distant lands, of friends long buried. He sets the coin on a wooden desk in his study. And every night before sleeping, he looks at it, not as money, but as a memory of a life once lived. Marcellinus was a man who understood the world not through philosophy or poetry, but through seasons, harvests, and the faint tremors of hooves beneath the earth before a cavalry charge. His villa in Carthage sat under a warm African sun, surrounded by olive trees that shimmered like silver when the wind moved through them. Every evening after the last servant extinguished the lamps in the halls, Marcellinus retreated to his quiet study, where he kept only a few objects he truly valued. A worn leather map from his campaign days, a bronze helmet dented from a battle long ago, a statue of Minerva, and the silver denarius. He held the coin often, running his thumb along the ridged edges. Something about its weight comforted him. It was more than silver. It was a reminder of Rome's order, Rome's discipline, Rome's promise. As a young man, he had ridden across the empire's wide roads believing that Rome would last forever. Now, older and wiser, he sensed subtle cracks forming in the world around him. New whispers of corruption, uncertainty in the provinces, unrest stirring in lands he once thought unshakable. Still, the coin made him feel anchored. One afternoon, while inspecting his olive groves, Marcellinus stopped under the shade of a fig tree. His foreman rushed to him, breathless. "Master, the tax official has arrived earlier than expected." Marcellinus sighed. He didn't mind paying taxes. He had served Rome his entire life. But he despised the arrogance of certain officials. Some were honest. Many were greedy. Walking back toward the villa, he prepared himself for yet another negotiation over grain quotas and land valuations. The tax collector, a pudgy man with thin hair and quick eyes, sat waiting in the atrium, sipping wine he had not been offered. When Marcellinus entered, the man rose with exaggerated formality. "Marcellinus, "A pleasure as always. I hope your harvest was prosperous." Marcellinus sat across from him, folding his arms. "Get to the point." The man smiled thinly. "Due to increased military demands, the governor has ordered an additional levy on landowners." Marcellinus stared at him. "Funny, I heard no such decree." The official hesitated just long enough to reveal his lie. "Orders travel slowly," he replied. Marcellinus' gaze hardened. "Or perhaps you travel faster than the orders and hope to profit from the confusion." The official set down his cup, suddenly wary. "Master, surely. Enough." Marcellinus stood, walked to his study, and returned holding a small leather pouch. The tax collector's eyes gleamed. "I will pay what I owe, no more, no less." He opened the pouch and poured coins onto the table. The denarius rolled to the edge, catching the official's attention. New silver, sharp details, valuable. The official reached for it, but Marcellinus placed his hand over the coin. "Not that one," Marcellinus said quietly. The official blinked. "Why?" "Because it is mine," Marcellinus replied simply. He replaced the denarius with 2 older coins. The official forced a smile, accepted the payment, and left with a face tight with irritation. Later that night, Marcellinus sat alone with the silver denarius in his palm. A voice inside him whispered that Rome was changing. Not the grand Rome he once fought for, but a greedier Rome, a colder Rome. He wondered how many like the tax collector were spreading through the empire like cracks through marble. The coin's shine comforted him again. But fate, as always, had its own plans. Months later, Carthage was struck by a terrible fire. What began as a spark in the market district grew into an inferno that consumed warehouses, shops, and homes. Smoke darkened the sky for days. Marcellinus, along with dozens of neighbors, rushed to help douse the flames, but the wind carried embers into new streets faster than any bucket line could stop. On the second day of the fire, thieves took advantage of the chaos. As Marcellinus directed his workers near the villa's outer courtyard, a group of looters forced a side door open and ran inside. By the time they were caught, many items were gone: silverware, tools, coins. The denarius too. Marcellinus searched everywhere in his study, lifting scrolls and opening chests, but the coin was gone. He felt a strange ache, as though a tiny piece of his past had vanished, swallowed by smoke and dishonor. The thieves fled Carthage, eventually escaping to a port town where they traded stolen goods for passage across the Mediterranean. One thief, a young man named Doran, kept the silver denarius for himself, tucking it into a small pouch under his tunic. It was not loyalty or sentiment that made him keep it, only greed. He believed the coin was lucky. The ship they boarded was headed to Sicily, carrying grain to feed Rome itself. The journey began peacefully. The sailors hummed tunes, the sky shimmered blue, and the sea was calm enough to make even the most anxious passenger relax. But midway across the water, a storm formed without warning. Dark clouds unfurled across the horizon, swallowing the sun. Waves slammed against the hull, tossing the ship like driftwood. Sailors ran wildly, tying ropes, climbing masts, shouting prayers. Doran clung to the railing, drenched and terrified. A tremendous wave crashed into the deck, knocking several passengers overboard. Doran screamed as he felt the ship tilt violently. His pouch tore open, spilling coins across the deck. The silver denarius slid between the wooden planks and fell into the churning sea. The ship barely survived. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the deck littered with debris but still afloat. Doran mourned his lost coin more than he mourned the storm's damage. Meanwhile, the denarius sank slowly through the dark water, turning gently like a leaf drifting downward. It settled onto the sandy seabed near a cluster of rocks. Fish glided past it, sea grass swayed. For weeks the coin remained undisturbed, until one quiet morning a fisherman casting nets along the Sicilian coast pulled his catch aboard. As he untangled seaweed and small fish, he spotted a glimmer inside the net. The denarius, freed from its watery grave, rolled across the wooden planks of his small boat. The fisherman picked it up, smiling. "A good omen," he whispered. He used the coin later that week to purchase new hooks and line from a supplier in Syracuse. The supplier, a tall woman named Helena, accepted it with a curious glance. "Fresh mint," she muttered. She had handled thousands of coins in her life, but this one felt unusually crisp for something that had clearly traveled far. Helena placed the coin among her earnings, then forgot about it until months later when she made a major purchase of silk imported from the East. She handed the coin to the silk trader, who carried it with him on his long, weary journey back toward the Italian mainland. That trader was robbed 2 days after arriving in Brundisium. Bandits ambushed him on a rural road, stealing everything of value, including the denarius. The leader of the bandits laughed as he examined the coin. "Silver is silver," he said, tossing it casually into a leather pouch overflowing with plunder. For years, the bandits roamed southern Italy, attacking caravans and travelers. The coin passed from one leader to another, used for drink, for gambling, for paying informants. It witnessed violence, betrayal, and the darker corners of human desperation. But coins do not judge. They simply endure. Eventually, the Roman army cracked down on the bandit operation. A legion finally cornered the group near a ravine, defeating them in a fierce skirmish. When the bodies were searched, the silver denarius was found in the pouch of the bandit chief and deposited as evidence before being returned to circulation. The coin made its way north once more, traveling through traders and shopkeepers until it reached the city of Rome again. The timing was significant. Rome had changed. Emperors rose and fell quickly. Corruption spread like rot. Inflation pressed heavily on ordinary citizens as coin purity declined. But the denarius, struck in better times, was still pure silver. People noticed. An elderly money changer near the forum examined it one morning. "Ah," he said softly, "a true denarius from the early years of Marcus Aurelius." He weighed it, nodded, and set it aside. "This one is worth holding." But just as he reached for a cloth to wrap it safely, a thief snatched it from the table and ran. The old man shouted, but the young thief disappeared into the labyrinth of Rome's back alleys. The thief, a boy named Cassian, was barely 15. He ran not out of malice but hunger. His mother was ill, his younger sister weak, and he had no other way to get money quickly. When he reached the small, damp room his family rented, he showed the coin to his mother. She coughed weakly. "Sell it," she whispered. "Buy bread, buy medicine." Cassian nodded, though something about the coin tugged at him. He admired its shine, its sharp detail. It looked almost noble. But hunger does not respect beauty. He took it to a small shop run by a kind old herbalist. The man recognized Cassian immediately. He often gave the boy scraps of bread. When Cassian placed the coin on the counter, the herbalist frowned. "Where did you get this?" Cassian looked down. "I found it," he lied. The herbalist sighed. He suspected the truth, but he also knew the boy's circumstances. With gentle hands, he collected a small basket of herbs, dried figs, and bread. He pushed the basket toward the boy. "Take these, feed your mother." He then handed Cassian 3 smaller coins in exchange for the denarius, far more than Cassian expected. The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. The herbalist smiled softly. "Go now." When Cassian left, the herbalist held the silver denarius for a long moment. He had once been a prosperous man before losing his wife and fortune. Life had taught him what truly mattered. "Wealth that heals is the only wealth worth having," he murmured. He placed the coin inside a small wooden box, a box where he kept only things connected to meaningful moments. Years passed. Rome grew more chaotic. Taxes increased. Soldiers demanded higher pay. Life became harder for ordinary people. The herbalist's business slowed. Customers could no longer afford even basic remedies. And one harsh winter, a desperate decision confronted him: sell the items in his memory box or starve. With a heavy heart, he opened the box and removed the silver denarius. He walked slowly toward the market, clutching the coin inside his fist as if it were a piece of his own past. Vendors shouted prices. Crowds pushed and jostled. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts and damp stone. As he approached a money changer's table, a commotion broke out. A soldier shoved past him roughly, bumping his arm. The coin slipped from his fingers, bouncing on the stone pavement. Before he could reach it, a small girl picked it up. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her dark hair was tangled, her tunic ragged. She turned the coin over curiously, mesmerized by its shine. "Little one," the herbalist said gently, "that coin belongs to me." The girl hesitated. Her eyes flicked to her mother, who stood nearby selling handmade pottery, cracked, humble pieces that few people wanted. The mother noticed the herbalist and immediately tried to take the coin from her daughter. "I'm so sorry, sir, here," but the herbalist raised a hand. "No, let her keep it." The mother froze. "Sir, we cannot accept charity." "It is not charity," he said softly. "It is a blessing." The little girl beamed, clutching the coin tightly before slipping it into a small cloth pouch tied around her waist. As she skipped happily around the stall, the herbalist felt a warmth in his chest. The coin had brought comfort to him once. Now it had become hope to someone else. He bowed respectfully to the mother and walked away, feeling strangely lighter despite his empty stomach. The girl, whose name was Livia, kept the coin as her only treasure, but life in Rome was unpredictable. 1 year later, disease swept through the poorer districts. Livia's mother grew ill. Their income collapsed. One evening, with tears in her eyes, the mother handed Livia the cloth pouch. "Take this to the market," she whispered. "Sell it, buy food, promise me." Livia didn't want to. The coin was her lucky charm, but she loved her mother more. She walked alone toward the marketplace, clutching the pouch. Along the way, she passed a group of street performers juggling and dancing. Lost in the moment, she stepped too close to a jug of water. A man bumped her shoulder. She stumbled. The pouch slipped from her hand, rolling into the street. A horse-drawn wagon passed over the pouch, splitting it open. The silver denarius shot out, bouncing across the cobblestones. Before Livia could reach it, a dog barked and chased it, pawing at it playfully until it rolled downhill. Livia ran after it, breathless, scared, calling out, "Stop, please stop." But the coin rolled faster than her small legs could move. It disappeared into a drainage channel. Livia collapsed, sobbing. To her, it felt as if the world had taken her last hope. The coin, meanwhile, washed down a narrow channel, carried by rainwater toward the Tiber River. For hours it drifted, bumping against stones, spinning gently in the current. When the water settled, the coin lodged itself between 2 rocks by the riverbank. There it rested, for days, weeks, months, until the touch of a monk changed everything. The monk who discovered the silver denarius was named Brother Theon, a quiet, contemplative soul who walked the riverbank every morning collecting driftwood for the monastery's small kitchen fires. He was a tall, thin man with deep-set eyes and a smile that appeared rarely but warmly, like sunlight through clouds. The monastery where he lived stood on a hill overlooking the Tiber, its stone walls weathered by time, its gardens filled with olives and rosemary. It was a place far removed from the noise and corruption of Rome, a sanctuary where silence was not lonely but full. On that particular morning, Brother Theon sensed the season shifting. Early spring had softened the winter cold. Birdsong replaced the eerie quiet of the colder months. As he walked along the damp bank, he spotted something glinting between 2 river stones. Curious, he crouched down and gently pried the object free. When he lifted it into the sunlight, the coin flashed like a captured star. He studied it closely, brushing away mud with his sleeve. The face of Marcus Aurelius stared back at him, calm, wise, unbroken by centuries of movement. Brother Theon's brows rose slightly. "A coin of old Rome," he whispered. "You have traveled far, little wanderer." Unlike merchants or soldiers who saw coins as tools or necessities, Brother Theon saw meaning in everything. To him, the coin was not simply silver. It was a message, a reminder, a whisper from history. He slipped it carefully into the fold of his robe and continued walking. At the monastery, he cleaned the coin and placed it on his writing desk. where he worked each evening copying manuscripts. Candlelight danced across the coin's surface as Brother Theon examined it again and again. Sometimes, in the quiet hours before dawn, he imagined the faces of those who once held it, soldiers on frozen frontiers, merchants haggling in sunlit ports, children clutching it like treasure. The coin connected him to countless lives. There was a reason the coin captivated him so deeply. Brother Theon had once come from great wealth. Before joining the monastery, he had been the son of a prosperous senator. He grew up surrounded by marble halls, servants, tutors, and the luxuries of Rome. But he had never felt at home in that world of ambition and intrigue. When his father died under suspicious political circumstances, Theon abandoned his inheritance and took monastic vows, seeking a life of simplicity, truth, and quiet observation. And now, in this simple life, this coin, born of an emperor, passed through countless hands, felt to him like a symbolic thread tying him gently back to the world he had left behind. Not in a way that tempted him, but in a way that reminded him that every human story mattered, no matter how grand or humble. One evening, the abbot approached Brother Theon's desk. "You hold something tightly," he said with a half smile. "A coin," Theon replied softly. "Does it trouble you?" "No," Theon said. "But it speaks." The abbot nodded knowingly. "Then listen to it." Over the next few months, Brother Theon kept the coin near him as he wrote, prayed, and meditated. He never used it for food or trade. He believed it had a purpose yet unknown. Sometimes he lent it to younger monks who admired its shine, telling them it was a symbol of how small things can travel through great distances and still remain whole. But life, even in a monastery, is never still. One summer, the monastery found itself in dire need. A series of harsh storms ruined the olive crop, leaving the monks with little to sell. The roof of their granary had collapsed during a tempest, and repairs were urgently required. The abbot met with the council and concluded that they must travel to Rome to request assistance from wealthy patrons. Brother Theon volunteered for the journey. It was during that journey that the coin would once again change hands. Brother Theon walked for days along dusty roads. When he reached Rome, he stayed near the Forum, arranging meetings with several former acquaintances of his father, senators, merchants, and landowners. Some greeted him kindly. Others pretended not to remember him at all. The city had changed since his youth. It felt heavier, burdened by distrust and political tension. One afternoon, while crossing a busy street, Brother Theon felt a tug at his robe. He looked down and saw a thin boy, perhaps 10 years old, trying to slip a hand into his pocket. Theon quickly grabbed the child's wrist but did not tighten his grip. "Why do you steal, child?" Theon asked gently. The boy's eyes widened in fear. "Please, I'm sorry, I didn't know, please don't call the guards." "I won't," Theon said softly. "Tell me your name." "Rufus." "Do you have a family, Rufus?" The boy hesitated. "A mother, sick, very sick." Theon's heart softened. He reached into his robe and removed the coin, the silver denarius that had lived so many lives. He held it out to the boy. Rufus stared at it, stunned. "Is this for me?" "Yes," Theon said, "but promise me something." "What?" "That you will use it for food, for your mother, not for trouble." Rufus nodded vigorously. Tears formed in his eyes as he accepted the coin with trembling hands. "Thank you," he whispered. Brother Theon watched the boy run off, weaving through the crowds. Theon felt lighter, as if releasing the coin had released something in his own heart as well. Perhaps the coin's journey was not meant to end with him, but the world had other plans for Rufus. That very evening, while returning to his mother's small, crumbling apartment, Rufus wandered through a crowded square where a street fight had broken out. Soldiers tried to disperse the crowd. People ran in every direction. In the chaos, someone slammed into Rufus, knocking him down. The pouch around his neck tore and the coin rolled away. Rufus scrambled to find it, rooting through dust and feet and broken pottery, but the crowd pushed him back. When the square finally cleared, the coin was gone. He wept quietly, ashamed to tell his mother what had happened. Meanwhile, the denarius had been picked up by one of the soldiers attempting to control the riot, a veteran named Longinus, who had fought in Parthia and the northern provinces. Longinus was a tired man. War had carved deep lines in his face. His hands trembled when he tried to drink. He longed for peace, but he also feared it. Without the army, he had nothing. As he examined the coin later that night, he marveled at its purity. "A coin like this," he muttered, "could buy me one warm meal, maybe two." But he didn't spend it immediately. There was something strangely calming about the coin. Its smooth edges, its familiar weight, the noble face of Marcus Aurelius, an emperor Longinus respected deeply, brought him quiet comfort. He kept it close to his chest as he slept, clutching it like a charm warding off nightmares. A week later, Longinus made a difficult decision. He planned to leave the army. He couldn't bear another campaign, another winter, another journey into hostile lands. He wanted to find a small piece of countryside where he could live out the rest of his life peacefully. To do that, he needed to travel across Italy and pay for food and lodging along the way. The coin would become his companion for the journey. He left Rome at dawn, walking along the Via Appia. The road stretched before him like a ribbon of stone, lined with cypress trees and ancient tombs. As he traveled through small towns, he purchased bread, cheese, and shelter using other coins, always keeping the silver denarius untouched. In a way, the coin symbolized his last remaining tie to Rome, the Rome he believed in, the Rome of his youth. One evening, while staying at a dusty roadside inn, Longinus met a family traveling north. A mother, a father, and their little girl, barely 4 years old. The girl was curious, lively, full of questions. She reminded Longinus of a daughter he might have had if life had been kinder. She approached him shyly while he ate. "Sir," she said softly, "is that silver coin yours?" Longinus looked up, surprised. The coin had slipped from his pouch while he rested, catching the girl's attention. He nodded and picked it up. "Yes, it has been with me a long time." "It's shiny," the girl murmured, mesmerized. The mother hurried over. "I'm so sorry, she doesn't mean to bother you." "No bother," Longinus replied softly. The little girl hesitated, then said, "Can I hold it?" Longinus placed the coin in her tiny hands. She examined it carefully as if it were a magical object. "Who is this?" she asked, pointing to the emperor's face. "A great man," Longinus said. "A wise man." The girl nodded solemnly, then returned the coin. That night, Longinus lay awake in his small rented bed, thinking. The family had mentioned they were struggling to reach their relatives farther north. Their wagon wheel had broken, and they didn't have enough money to repair it. Longinus closed his hand around the silver denarius. At dawn, he stepped outside and approached the father, who was attempting to repair the wheel with only a few crude tools. Longinus held out the coin. The father looked confused. "What is this?" "For your journey," Longinus said quietly. "A gift." "We cannot accept." "You can," Longinus insisted. "And you will for your daughter." The little girl peeked from behind her mother's skirt and smiled brightly when she saw the coin. Longinus felt warmth spread through his chest, something he had not felt in years. After giving the coin away, he continued walking alone, feeling strangely at peace. The father used the coin that very morning to pay a craftsman to fix their wagon. Once the repair was done, the craftsman kept the coin in his workshop. He admired its quality and intended to keep it for himself. But fate would soon intervene again. 2 nights later, thieves broke into the craftsman's workshop. They stole tools, bronze scraps, silver jewelry, and the denarius. The thieves fled into the countryside, but the craftsman, desperate and angry, reported the crime to the local magistrate. A detachment of Roman soldiers tracked the thieves down. In a violent confrontation, the thieves were captured or killed. The stolen goods were collected and sorted. Among the scattered items, a soldier found the denarius in the dirt. He wiped it clean, shrugged, and tossed it into the loot bag. From there, the coin entered the treasury of a small provincial garrison. But it would not stay there long. A young scribe named Quintus was tasked with counting and recording the recovered coins. He was intelligent, ambitious, and painfully underpaid. While writing by lamplight, he noticed the denarius glowing softly among the duller coins. He reached out and picked it up. "A coin from the reign of Marcus Aurelius," he murmured. "A beautiful one." His mind began to wander. He dreamed of leaving his garrison post, moving to Rome, becoming a scholar in one of the city's libraries, writing scrolls that would be read for centuries. But such dreams required silver he didn't have. He looked at the coin again. Then he slipped it quietly into his boot. One coin wouldn't be noticed, but one coin would change everything for him. For months, Quintus saved coins he earned, adding small amounts to a pouch he kept hidden beneath a loose floor tile. But the silver denarius remained the centerpiece of his tiny collection, his symbol of hope. At last, he decided to travel to Rome. He packed lightly, said farewell to the officers, and set out along the main road. He carried his small pouch of coins concealed beneath his tunic. Each night he slept under olive trees, listening to the wind whisper across the branches. Each morning he continued walking. One evening, as he neared a busy market town, Quintus stopped at a well to drink. A group of rough-looking men approached him. "Traveling alone, friend?" one asked with a cold smile. Quintus sensed danger immediately. He backed away, but the men surrounded him. They demanded his money. Quintus swallowed hard and handed over the pouch. The men emptied it, spilling coins onto the ground. The silver denarius rolled toward the feet of the largest man. He lifted it and grinned. A fine coin. Then he kicked Quintus hard in the ribs and walked away laughing. Quintus lay in the dust, gasping from pain, devastated. All his savings gone, his dreams shattered. He sat there until darkness fell over the road, until his tears dried, until the night air cooled his bruised skin. Then he stood up, determined not to give up. If he could make it to Rome with nothing, he would start from nothing. But he would not stop. Meanwhile, the bandits who robbed him camped near a grove of trees. They drank, laughed, and admired their stolen wealth. As they argued over how to divide the spoils, the silver denarius was tossed from hand to hand like a game piece. At dawn, Roman soldiers ambushed them. The bandits scattered. One man dropped the coin as he ran. It rolled into a patch of tall grass. A soldier chasing the bandit stepped unknowingly on it, pressing it deeper into the earth. There, half buried in soil, the coin disappeared from the world's sight, and it would remain hidden for a very, very long time. Decades passed, then centuries. Rain washed over the land, trees grew, roads were rebuilt, then abandoned. Rome crumbled. Empires rose and fell. People lived, loved, fought, died. Armies marched. Rivers shifted. The world transformed again and again, layer upon layer of history burying the denarius deeper until it lay under old ruins forgotten. For nearly 1,000 years, the coin slept in the earth, until a farmer's plow woke it. The farmer who woke the sleeping coin lived in a world that would have been almost unrecognizable to the men and women who once passed it from hand to hand. His name was Marco, and he tilled a small patch of land on the gentle slopes of what had once been a Roman road, and then a forgotten path, and then nothing more than a memory beneath the soil. The Empire of Rome had collapsed long ago. Kingdoms had risen and fallen. Faiths had spread. Languages had changed their shapes and sounds. Yet the land remained patient and quiet. Marco's days were simple. He rose before dawn, said a brief prayer, harnessed his oxen, and walked behind his wooden plow, cutting long furrows into the ground. On one such morning, as the first pale light of day crept across the fields, his plow struck something hard. The oxen lurched, snorting in protest. Marco frowned and halted the animals. He stepped forward, kneeling to clear soil with his hands. At first he thought it was a rock. But as he brushed away the earth, a small, round object emerged, dull yet unmistakably shaped by human hands. He dug it out, wiped it on his tunic, and squinted at it. A face, letters, a faint wreath of laurel. It was old, clearly ancient. He couldn't read the inscription, but he recognized it as Roman. He turned it over several times, curiosity tugging at him. To him, the coin was not money. It was a relic. A ghost from a past whispered about by priests and travelers, a past of emperors and marble cities, of gods and legions. Marco had never seen Rome. He had never walked through its ruins. But he had heard stories, and now those stories seemed to shimmer in his palm. When he returned home, he showed the coin to his wife, Elena. She took it gently, her rough hands used to kneading dough and washing clothes, not to holding pieces of history. She traced the faint image with the tip of her finger. "You should show this to Father Tommaso," she said. "He knows things, old things." That evening, after the Angelus bell rang, Marco walked to the small stone church that stood at the center of the village. Father Tommaso, an aging priest with kind eyes and a mind that wandered through books more easily than through fields, greeted him warmly. When Marco presented the coin, the priest's eyebrows rose. "Ah," Father Tommaso said softly, "Roma Antiqua." He moved closer to a candle, lifting the coin to the light. His lips moved as he read the worn inscription. "Marcus Aurelius," he whispered. "This coin is very old, my son, older than this church, older than our village, older than the very stones we walk upon." "Is it valuable?" Marco asked, not out of greed, but out of genuine curiosity. He lived simply. He did not expect riches, but he wondered if the coin might buy a better roof, a new plow, or medicine for his neighbor's sick child. The priest hesitated. "In silver, perhaps a little." "But in history," he smiled. "It is priceless." Marco thought for a moment. "Then it should be somewhere safe," he said. "Not in my house where it might be lost or stolen." Father Tommaso studied him, then nodded appreciatively. "You are wise, Marco. If you wish, I can keep it here in the chapel, as a reminder of how small we are in the face of time, and yet how connected we are to those who came before." Marco agreed. The coin was placed inside a small wooden box lined with cloth and stored in a niche behind the altar, along with other simple relics. A fragment of an old bone said to belong to a saint, a piece of parchment written in a language no one could read, a broken bronze ring. The silver denarius lay quietly among them, listening to the soft murmurs of prayers and the echo of hymns. Years passed. The village changed. Children grew up, married, and had their own children. Fields were expanded. Houses were repaired and rebuilt. Storms came and went. The church roof leaked, was patched, leaked again. Father Tommaso grew frail. On cold evenings, he would sit alone in the candlelit chapel, open the box, and hold the coin in his hand. He would think of all the hands that had held it before: soldiers, traders, thieves, monks, mothers, children. He imagined the empire that had minted it, the roads that had carried it, the waters that had swallowed it, the soil that had protected it. He thought of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor whose meditations he had once read in a faded book. He closed his eyes and whispered, "What is wealth truly, if even an emperor's coin ends up here in my old hands, in a village no one will ever write about?" One winter, Father Tommaso fell ill. The villagers did what they could, bringing broth and herbs, but the old man knew his time was near. On his final evening, he asked for Marco, the farmer who had found the coin so many years earlier. Marco, now older and slower but still strong, came at once. The priest asked him to open the box. Marco did. The silver denarius lay inside, its surface slightly darker with age but still bearing the emperor's calm profile. Father Tommaso gestured for Marco to take it. "Keep it now," the priest whispered. "I am going somewhere coins do not matter." Marco shook his head. "But you said it should stay here." The priest smiled faintly. "Nothing stays anywhere forever. The coin does not belong to me, or to you, or to anyone. But perhaps one day someone will come who understands its story. Until then, you will protect it." Marco accepted the coin with reverence, as if the priest had handed him not metal but a fragile flame. He slipped it into a leather cord and tied it around his neck under his shirt, where it rested close to his heart. After Father Tommaso's burial, life continued. It always does. Seasons turned. Plows cut through soil. Rain fell. Festivals were celebrated. Children laughed and cried. Marco carried the coin for the rest of his life, not as money, not as something to spend, but as a quiet reminder that he too was part of a story larger than himself. When he died, his eldest son found the coin among his belongings. The son, less sentimental than his father, respected it but didn't feel the same connection. He kept it in a small wooden chest along with other trinkets, an old knife, a rusty key, a dried flower his mother had once pressed between pages. Eventually, the chest was forgotten in a corner of the house. Generations came and went. The house was remodeled, then rebuilt. The chest was moved to an attic, then to a storage room. Dust settled on it. Spiderwebs spanned its corners. The coin waited again in darkness. Time is patient. Centuries rolled by. The small village slowly grew into a town. Roads improved. Merchants arrived. A railway line was built nearby. New languages and new fashions swept through. The world beyond expanded with discoveries, inventions, revolutions. Yet in a quiet room at the back of an ordinary house, a tiny chest lay undisturbed. Until one day, a young boy named Luca, exploring his grandparents' house during a long summer afternoon, found it. He had been searching for hidden swords or secret tunnels, the way children often do, when he stumbled upon the old chest. Its lid creaked when he opened it, spewing dust into the air. Inside, among the forgotten odds and ends, he found the coin. It was heavier than he expected. He turned it over in his fingers, fascinated by the unfamiliar face and strange letters. He ran to his grandfather, waving the coin excitedly. "Nano, look what I found." His grandfather, a retired schoolteacher, put on his glasses and took the coin, his brow furrowed with interest. "Where did you get this?" "From that old box in the back room." The old man's eyes softened. "Ah, that box belonged to your great-great-grandfather. I had forgotten it even existed." He examined the coin more carefully, his mind ticking through fragments of lessons and dates. "This is Roman," he said at last. "Very old. You may have found something important, Luca." Together, they visited a small local museum in the nearby town. The curator, a woman with sharp eyes and a passion for history, took one look at the coin and grew visibly excited. She fetched a magnifying glass, checked reference books, and measured its weight. "This is a silver denarius from the reign of Marcus Aurelius," she said. "Around the 2nd century after Christ, it's in remarkable condition. Do you realize what you've brought me?" Luca's grandfather smiled. "A piece of the past." The curator nodded. "A witness. This coin has survived wars, invasions, plague, neglect, and time. It should not be sitting in a dusty box. It belongs to history now." She asked if they were willing to donate it to the museum. Luca's grandfather looked at the boy. "What do you think, Luca?" Luca thought for a moment. He liked the coin. It made him feel special, like a hero in a story. But he also imagined people coming to see it, people learning about it, people imagining all the lives it had touched. Slowly, he nodded. "Let it stay here," he said, "so everyone can see it." The curator's face lit up. "You are very generous," she said. "We will give your family's name on the plaque. And yours, Luca, you will be remembered for this." Soon after, the coin was placed in a glass display case under soft lights with a small inscription. "Roman silver denarius Marcus Aurelius, found in a local farmhouse. Donated by the family of Marco Rossi." The coin lay there, elevated from the dust and darkness, visible to anyone who cared to look. Years went by. School groups visited the museum. Children pressed their noses to the glass. Some listened politely to the guide's explanations. Others let their minds wander, imagining temples, battles, ships on restless seas. Adults paused in front of the coin, reading the text, nodding thoughtfully, then moving on. The coin witnessed all of this in patient silence. Then one day, a man from a distant country stepped into the museum. He was traveling through Europe, visiting small towns and forgotten museums in search of objects and stories that touched on the history of money. He was not rich in the way emperors were rich, but he had knowledge, curiosity, and a deep respect for how coins and currencies quietly told the story of human civilization. He moved from display to display, taking notes in a small leather notebook until he reached the silver denarius. He froze. There it was. To most, it was one coin among many, but to him, it was something more. On the plaque, he read the dates, the provenance, the simple note that it had been found in a farmhouse and likely lay buried in soil for centuries. He leaned closer, seeing the faint but still noble face of Marcus Aurelius. He imagined soldiers on frozen frontiers being paid in coins just like this one. He imagined merchants in Ostia weighing them carefully. He imagined tax collectors carrying them in leather bags across dangerous roads, monks holding them as symbols of worldly value, peasants seeing them as miracles, thieves seeing them as opportunity. He stepped back, his heart quietly stirred. That night in his small rented room above a cafe, he opened his laptop and began to write. He wrote not an academic paper, not a scientific report, but a story. A story about a coin that began in the mint of Rome and traveled through centuries like a silent witness, passing from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, heart to heart. He imagined each person who might have held it, gave them names, lives, fears, and dreams. He described battlefields, markets, villas, monasteries, storms, and fields. He traced the coin's path from soldier to merchant, from banker to tax collector, from fisherman to landowner, from thief to monk, from child to farmer, from chest to museum display. He wrote until his fingers ached, until the cafe below was silent, until the street outside was empty. When he finished, he leaned back and smiled. He felt as if he had finally done justice to a very small, very ordinary piece of metal that had seen extraordinary things. Months later, back in his home far away from that village, the man recorded the story in a calm, steady voice. He sat in a quiet room, the microphone before him, the script on the table, the silver denarius alive in his imagination. He took a deep breath and began. "Hello, dreamers." His voice was warm, gentle, slightly hushed, as if he were sitting beside a campfire under ancient stars, speaking to travelers who needed rest more than anything. He told them about soldiers and snow, about ports and spices, about greedy officials and kind ones, about monks and orphans, about bandits and farmers, about the passage of time and the unraveling of empires. As his story unfolded, he didn't just describe money. He described people, their struggles, their hopes, their sacrifices. He spoke of how a single coin could mean food to one man, greed to another, security to a third, hope to a child, memory to an old woman, and nothing at all to the indifferent sea that swallowed it for a time. He spoke of Marcus Aurelius and how the emperor himself had once written of the brevity of life, of the illusion of possessions, of the importance of the inner world over the outer. He wove these thoughts gently into the narrative, not as lectures, but as whispers from a distant past that still somehow understood the present. He imagined his listeners lying in bed in dark rooms, phones glowing softly beside them, headphones in their ears. He imagined them closing their eyes as they heard about the clink of coins on marble tables, the creak of wooden ships on black waters, the murmur of prayers in stone chapels, the rustle of olive leaves in a warm African breeze. He slowed his pacing, letting silences fall in the right places, allowing the story to breathe. He gave them time to see each scene in their minds. By the time he described the coin resting behind glass in a small museum, watched by schoolchildren who barely grasped its age, some of his listeners were already drifting toward sleep, their thoughts dissolving into the quiet rhythm of his voice. And as he spoke of the coin's journey, he invited them quietly to think of their own. Because the truth he had understood, the truth the coin had whispered to him behind the glass, was simple and profound. In every age, in every empire, in every city and village, people chase money, fear losing it, dream of getting more of it. But in the end, money passes on. It moves from hand to hand, life to life, generation to generation, while the ones who hold it for a moment move on to eternity. What remains are the stories. The soldier who lost the coin in the snow and never knew it fed a child in a distant village. The little girl who kept it in a pouch and believed it brought her luck, even though it slipped away from her in a crowded square. The monk who saw it as a symbol of the world he left behind and still carried gently in his robe. The farmer who thought enough to place it in safe hands instead of spending it on something trivial. The boy who discovered it in a dusty chest and chose to share it with the world rather than keep it hidden. Each person touched it briefly, then disappeared into time. Yet through them, and through the coin, something invisible flowed. Value, fear, need, kindness, greed, generosity, sacrifice. Those currents shaped families, villages, decisions, and destinies. As the storyteller neared the end of his tale, his voice softened further, like embers dimming after a long night. "And so, dreamers," he said gently, "the silver denarius of Marcus Aurelius lies now beneath a quiet light, behind a pane of glass, in a museum most of the world will never see. Visitors will walk past it, some noticing only its age, some admiring its craftsmanship, some not noticing it at all. But for those who pause and truly look, it is more than a coin. It is a mirror, not of the emperor's face, but of our own." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "Many centuries ago," he continued, "a wise man wrote that wealth, status, and fame fade quickly, swallowed by time just as easily as a coin can slip through fingers and vanish into the sea. What endures are the choices we make, the kindness we show, the burdens we ease, the stories we leave behind. The coin did not decide where it traveled, but you do. You decide what you do with the little pieces of value that pass through your hands." A soft exhale escaped him, almost a sigh. "Perhaps tonight, as you drift into sleep, you might think of all the coins, notes, and numbers that have passed through your life. Think of where they came from and where they will go. Think not only of what you want to get, but of what you want to give. Because in the end, money is not merely metal or paper or digits on a screen. It is a language, a river. It carries not only wealth, but intentions. And one day, when you are gone, the money that once belonged to you will still be moving through the world, touching lives you will never see, just as this coin did." Outside his window, the night was still. A distant car hummed past. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere else a clock ticked softly. "And perhaps," he whispered, voice almost a murmur now, "perhaps one small coin or one small act of generosity will travel farther, last longer, and mean more than you can ever imagine. Just as the coin of Aurelius did." He smiled, though no one could see it, only hear the warmth in his final words. "Sleep now, dreamers. The empires of the world will rise and fall. Markets will surge and crash. Fortunes will be made and lost. But tonight, none of that belongs in your hands. All you need to carry is your breath, your beating heart, and the knowledge that you are part of a story that began long before you and will continue long after. Rest in that truth. Let the noise of coins and markets fade. Let the worries loosen their grip. Feel the weight of the day slide from your shoulders." Another pause. In the darkness behind your eyes, the roads of Rome fade into starlight. The ships return to harbor. The markets fall silent. The coin rests, and so do you. Good night, dreamers, until our next story. And with that, he stopped recording, sat back in his chair, and listened to the soft, ringing silence that followed his last word. He knew that somewhere out there, perhaps in many homes and many beds, people would one day lie in the dark, listening to the journey of a single coin, and feel their own worries grow a little smaller, their own hearts a little calmer. The coin of Aurelius, once clutched in the frozen hand of a young soldier, once hidden in the robes of a monk, once buried in forgotten soil, had finally told its story. And in that story, it had become something more than silver. It had become a lullaby carried through time. And so, dreamers, our journey comes to a gentle close. If your eyes are heavy, let them stay that way. If your breathing has softened, let it flow like the quiet rivers that carried the coin through forgotten lands. Tonight, you walked beside soldiers and merchants, monks and children, thieves and wanderers. You crossed oceans, deserts, forests, and centuries, all through the life of something as small as a single Roman coin. It reminds us that everything we touch, everything we give, and everything we leave behind continues traveling in ways we may never see. Stories live longer than empires. Kindness travels farther than wealth. And the choices you make with what you hold today will echo long after your footsteps fade. If you're still awake, let your thoughts drift like dust floating in candlelight. If you're slipping into dreams, let your mind rest. You are safe. You are calm. And you are part of a story much larger than you know. Thank you, dreamers, for letting the Money Codex guide you tonight. If this story brought you peace or wonder or just a moment of stillness, then let it stay with you as you fall asleep. And when you wake again, may your morning be lighter, your heart steadier, and your path clearer. Until the next journey, good night, dreamers. Sleep softly, sleep deeply. And remember, even the smallest coin can carry 1,000 lifetimes.